Alright, so it's kind of coming to the end of summer, and of course nights are getting shorter and shorter, so I know for a fact that I'll be needing some more light on some of my equipment, and the new skid steer came with some nice LED lights, but unfortunately the excavator really only has one light, and that's right up here underneath the boom. I have taken it off because I have purchased a few nice LED lights. So this is the light that came with it. It's just an incandescent bulb and about a 3-inch module. So I was looking online at super bright LEDs, and they had a couple marine options. This one I believe is about 3.5 inches, square LED. It's around 1500 lumens. I'm not sure the lumen on this incandescent, but it wasn't too bright. So I'm going to replace the boom light with this one. And then up on the cab, I'm actually going to put this 2-foot bar, which is rated around 11,000 lumens. So I don't think I'm going to have any problems seeing, and it'll definitely make it a lot nicer for when you get to those dusk applications where you need just a bit extra light, and it's not completely dark yet. So I was looking on Bobcat's site for OEM stuff, but I didn't really see anything. I did ask the dealer if it is possible to get lights for these, but I didn't really ask the cost or anything like that because I presume it's going to be a lot more than what I purchased these lights for. So on the top of this cab, there are a couple mounting brackets for where I believe their light sets would go on, but the distance between them is about 32 inches and the light bar is 24, and the only other light bars I could find were either 20 inches, 24 inches, or more than 32 inches. So they would end up abutting this bracket piece right here, and they would not fit inside where I could actually mount them. So since this one's smaller, I got an angular piece of aluminum here that I can cut down to the inner dimension and then pop up there and be able to mount the light in the center, and that'll keep it up out of the way and give it some good rigidity such that it won't flex or pop off. Now what it looks like is I can maybe fish a wire through that grommet down the column on either side, and so what I'm hoping I can do is pop up the floor paneling, tracing this plug all the way back and underneath the cabin here, and just be able to pull that wire down and then just splice right into it so that I can have both lights on the same switch, relay, and fuse. I did buy a fuse box, or I did buy a full relay fuse set with a switch on it for the light just in case, but all I have to do really is just snip off the end with the connector and fish that down, and then I'll be able to tap right in. So the first order of business is to take off this connector because the connector that we have for the other light is different. And of course, the one thing that sucks not having a shop or any space in my garage is that I really don't have anywhere to work, so I kind of have to work outside on these machines due to the fact that they don't fit in my garage. Just left a bit on this in case something doesn't go right and I have to reattach this. All right, so this has a lot of slack up here, but I'm just going to test to see that it works first. Oh. All right, that works. So I'm just going to tie up the extra cable up on top of it, and then it should be good. Okay, we'll see how that holds up. It's pretty hard to try and hide the cables or hold the cables back there. Might be easier to tie them on this mount, but I figured it was easiest just to have them all on the same side as where it was exiting the light. So I have a zip tie over here holding them against the plate, and then I have a zip tie holding it against itself where the plug is, but we'll see how it holds up once I start banging it around. But this light's on there real secure, so that should be good. All right, so now I want to go ahead and see if I can sort out the top mounting bracket. Alright, so this has a couple different ways to mount it, I believe. So we have a track on the bottom which we can use to mount off of these nubs here to tilt, or we could attach end pivot points and have it arm out to where the actual angle is. So I think based on where this cable's coming out, we're going to go down the right column. So this is the top. This would have to go somewhere like this in order to have that cable come out. And this bottom running rail, basically, that or I could have maybe have it. Ultimately, the light fixture can't be inside of this angle iron on the bottom and low because it'll conflict with how the door lifts up. It'll hit the grommet. So keeping it up and out as high as possible will be my best bet. So I believe what I'm going to do is use these mounted end pieces, and that'll allow me to get the wire down the other side, and it will also allow me to mount it out far enough that it's not going to conflict with the door opening. Alright, 25, something like that, and we'll get it centered. Alright, so since this side is going to come pretty close to the actual cab, I'm going to have to put the bolts in backwards. So I'm hoping that I'm going to have enough clearance as well as just enough space to grip it so I can tighten them down. Alright, so I widened up these holes so I can get a bit more play so I can get the bolt heads in the back. So let's see if I can get those in before I actually put it up there. I got it mounted up there okay, so I took it back down and I am now going to solder together the connectors. So for this one, I believe how it works, as far as I can tell from the wiring diagram, the blue and the red are for either flood or spotlight. I don't remember which goes to which, but if you just wire both of them together to your positive lead, they will both turn on, so that'll get both rows of LEDs lit up. And then this is the connector to the relay circuit that I have. So unfortunately, I just have this very old soldering iron, so it takes a while to heat up, but it'll do the job. Basically, when you're soldering, you want to try to make sure that you heat up the object that you want to solder, not just the solder itself. So doing your best to leave the iron on the other side of the solder and trying to get that item hot enough that the solder melts when it touches the item is ideal. Unfortunately, with this older soldering iron, it's a little difficult. It doesn't seem to be heating up properly. There you go, you can see we're kind of melting it as we're pressing it against the cable. There it is. Now it's just melting into the strands. Send a good bit in there. And then it gets wicked through all of it. And then when it cools down, it'll be nice and held. But those are held together nice and tight. Then go ahead and just slip some heat shrink over them. So we have the individual wires heat shrunk here. I should have trimmed these up some more, but I did not see they were that extra long. Alright, so to get to where those cables come in, where this grommet comes down on the column, I have to take the floor out. Alright, so to get the floor off, I have to take this panel off on the outside so that I can slide out this panel, and then I believe these pop up, but I want to be able to see this column, but I want to be able to see what comes out of this column here, so. Alright, so this is the plug right here that goes to the main light out there. There's also another plug off this harness, but I'm not quite sure on its wiring scheme here. So here's the female connector. This is what I want to connect to the actual light, and then down the wire it feeds into a relay. And so I'm going to cut it here and fish it down the column, and then tie into the plug for the light on the boom that's already there, so that they can both be tied to the same plug and turned on and off with the same switch and relay inside the machine. So the grommet's up here, right below the angle. Let's see if I can manage to push this in and down. Hoping that it's rigid enough, doesn't conflict with anything. Alright, so that got it all the way down the column. I pulled it down and through, across here. All right, so basically what I want to do is tie it into the light side on the boom, which is this guy right here, because this one is the double cluster coming from the machine itself. Again, I'm not entirely sure. This is probably for the light kit if I was to purchase it from them, but since I don't have that light kit, I'm just going to modify this plug. All right, so I just put a little extension off the outer plug and brought it in, married them all together, put a whole bunch of solder, heat shrunk them. So those should be good. And now I will mount the top light and hope to God everything just turns on. Well, good news. Both of the lights turn on. So now I just got to put everything back together. All right, now that it is dark out, let's give these lights a try and see how bright they actually are. So you can kind of see here, this is basically what I had before with the incandescent. It was just a bit dimmer, but pretty much the same throw distance. You would really only get to illuminate whatever the boom was directly looking at. So if you slew the boom, or you pick it up, or you move anything, you cannot see the ground. So adding in that top bar light not only gives a huge amount of light, but it allows me to move the boom around and also still see what's in front of me and to my sides so much better. So that's a whole bunch more light and lets me see pretty much 180 degrees in front of the machine. You know, I can see all the way out to my sides as well as down to right in front of where my boom is. So this will be great for, you know, finishing up at night. Any of those jobs that go a little bit longer than they need to. All right, so this thing is ready to work at night.